A woman wakes up in a small cave, hears the sound of a plane engine, immediately becomes alert and quickly grabs her rifle. She is an excellent sniper waiting for the target to land. The shot is almost imperceptible but fatal. After retrieving the dresa, she meditates. On this side, the male lead of the film, Levi, suddenly wakes up. He used to be a sniper but left the army 4 years ago. He decided to take a walk to clear his mind. Levi went to the harbor and stayed there until sunrise. He also wrote a few lines in his diary contemplating his life. Suddenly, he received a message from a strange number asking him to go to the base. A few hours later, Levi arrived at a Federal Reserve. A soldier led him into the meeting room, where he met a high-ranking official named Weaver. The woman started the conversation by presenting impressive data about a gunman with excellent achievements, but is no longer active. She said that she has a special mission for Levi. Meanwhile, in his hometown, Dresa visited his father at his mother's grave. She felt guilty for completing the mission, when the target was a man with a family. Dresa also said that she often lost sleep because of her work. However, her father explained that her target had become rich by selling bombs and mines. He caused thousands of deaths and irreparable losses to many families. The conversation changed when her father revealed that he was dying of cancer, and had set a date to end it all, which is the next February 14th. Dresa was very heartbroken by her father's words, but he insisted that his life was his own and he had made a decision. Despite being sad, Dresa still accepted her father's choice and drank with him. A few days later, Levi woke up on a plane. Immediately, a soldier asked him to pack his things, because they were about to reach the paratrooper area and could not bring anything. The soldier gave him a small bag and told him that when he got to the ground, he had to walk 38 kilometers north. Curious about his location, Levi asked where they were, but the soldier did not answer. A few minutes later, he jumped down into a vast valley surrounded by high mountains. Levi walked until the next day and came to a large ravine covered by thick fog. While observing around, a soldier found him. This soldier had been in this area for a year, and Levi was the first person he talked to. The soldier said that Levi would live in the West Watchtower for a year and invited him for a drink to explain everything. Before entering the tower, Levi noticed the East Watchtower on the other side of the ravine. The soldier said that communication with the other side was forbidden. However, he also mentioned that he saw a changing of the guard in the morning. When entering the tower, Levi saw a photo of the first guard captain. The soldier explained that the bunker outside contained an armory, where Levi would find everything he needed, including guns, ammunition, mines, and tools. Every 30 days they would contact each other via radio to report the situation. Levi asked about the camouflage transmitter. The soldier explained that it was a satellite transmitter device placed scattered in the area, helping to hide the ravine from spy satellites. The soldier also added that there was no contact with the outside, but there was an emergency button on the shortwave radio. However, if the ravine was invaded, the defense system would activate the straight protocol. When Levi heard the alarm, the soldier said that the order was to run without stopping. He also mentioned that this whole area was a base built from the mid-World War II period, where an agreement was established between the West and East factions to keep the location secret and protect it. Suspecting the mission, Levi asked what the real purpose of protecting this place was. But the soldier replied that their mission was to prevent what was inside the ravine from escaping. Levi became curious and did not understand what the real mission was, but the soldier only said that it was what his predecessor said a year ago. So Levi had to keep an eye on the central walls, and the automatic weapons in the north and south would protect the rest. Levi was still skeptical about what could be hidden beneath the thick fog of the ravine. The soldier threw a grenade down. After the explosion, a strange sound rang out, attracting Levi's attention. The soldier called them hollow people, but no one really knew what they were. He also said that in the late 1940s, 3 battalions of about 2,400 soldiers were sent down the ravine, but none returned. Levi did not believe that this place was really a terrible place or had monstrous creatures, but the soldier affirmed that no one knew exactly what was below. He said this ravine was the gate of hell and they were the gatekeepers. The next morning, Levi said goodbye to the soldier and entered the facility. A few hours later, the soldier was picked up by a rescue helicopter. However, after confirming the soldier's identity, they thanked him for his service and shot him dead immediately. Then they threw the soldier's body down the ravine and reported to Weaver that the exchange was complete. At this time, Levi was leaving the tower to update the system and check if the weapons were working. After 30 days, Levi contacted the outside world via radio and reported that he had not had any contact with the enemy. The entire system here was still working when he had a question, but the radio contact was suddenly cut off. With not much to do, Levi took books from the shelf to read and discovered the inscriptions on the wall. These were the words left by each previous guard. There was a sentence that caught his attention. "Only those who dare to step into the unknown will know how far they can go." This sentence was written by the first tower guard, Captain Bradford, in 1947. One morning, hearing the sound, Levi decided to observe the opposite tower and discovered the new guard. It was Dresa. She was chosen to guard the other side of the tower. Many days passed like that. On a quiet night, both soldiers sat on the top of the watchtower. Dresa observed Levi, feeling bored with the monotonous days, and decided to risk contact. She fired a shot into the sky to attract his attention, then started a written conversation. However, she was surprised when Levi asserted that communication was forbidden. Dresa replied that she didn't care and said that today was her birthday, so she would do what she liked. Accepting the invitation to contact, Levi raised a glass to wish Dresa a happy birthday, which made the young soldier excited. And all night she played loud music, dancing as if she was at a party. She also challenged Levi to show off his shooting skills, but he didn't want to participate. Seeing him hesitate, Dresa fired a perfect shot that broke Levi's glass. Not wanting to be outdone, Levi accepted the challenge and shot the wine bottle. Dresa prepared another challenge but suddenly noticed something moving on the cliff. She warned Levi to look to her side, and both realized something strange when the light shone through the area. Levi saw strange creatures, shaped like humans but intertwined with plant parts. He immediately opened fire on the creatures, activating the surrounding mines. Dresa also grabbed the machine gun and supported Levi to destroy the enemies who wanted to climb the cliff. After cleaning the west side, Dresa discovered that her side was also under attack. One of the creatures had climbed to the top of the watchtower. Now we can clearly see its terrifying shape. When faced with the enemy, Dresa immediately opened fire and killed it. However, more creatures were approaching. Levi supported by shooting down the monsters, killing as many as possible. One of the mines exploded, injuring Dresa. Levi quickly grabbed the machine gun. He fired non-stop at the creatures on both the east and his wall. Realizing the danger, Dresa got up and continued to shoot with Levi, taking advantage of the motion-activated automatic weapons. The night was extremely fierce, but in the end they protected the watchtowers. The next day, Levi proceeded to repair and replace new mines. Meanwhile, a mini-drone suddenly appeared from the thick fog. It quickly flew away, making both of them confused. The days passed without any further attacks. During this time, Levi and Dresa gradually built a close relationship and understood each other better. They enjoyed their free time by playing games despite the distance, such as playing chess through binoculars. One night, Levi suddenly woke up, while Dresa was quietly observing Levi, proving that between them was gradually forming a bond. One night, Levi saw Dresa crying. She was recalling the words her father said about leaving this life. She wrote to Levi that she had a bad day and wished he could be by her side. That night, Levi tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He thought about what Dresa had just confided. Remembering the words of the first guard, he decided to build a launching device to be able to cross to the other side, which made Dresa very surprised. And when she realized Levi's plan, she quickly left the tower and helped him fix the rope. A few minutes later, Levi wrote an invitation to have dinner together, making Dresa extremely happy. When she agreed, Levi prepared and launched himself across the cable. When he reached the middle, he had to crawl along the rope, while below was an abyss of mystery and danger. Fortunately, he crossed safely and immediately met Dresa. She had prepared a delicious dinner for both of them. Levi gave her a bouquet of flowers and received a tease that he smelled, so he had to take a shower. Then they enjoyed a beautiful moment together. For the first time after 6 months of knowing each other and working together, they shared stories about their lives and there. After dinner, they both went into the tower. Dresa also turned on a song and danced together. In that moment, they let their emotions and feelings run free, sharing a romantic night together. The next morning, Levi said goodbye to Dresa and used the cable to return to his tower. However, right then, an explosion from the mines caused the rope to break, causing him to fall freely into the abyss. Seeing Levi fall, Dresa hurriedly took the tools. Without hesitation, she threw herself down after him. She fell into a rushing stream but luckily escaped, while Levi was trapped on a tree trunk in a strange and eerie area. A creature like a giant centipede rushed to attack him, but Levi woke up and fought back against it. But unfortunately, he fell into the tree roots. They began to wrap around him as if trying to devour him. Luckily, Dresa appeared in time and pulled him out of that deadly trap. They both realized that this area was like a vast forest covered in thick fog. Suddenly, they heard the sound of horse hooves approaching. Immediately, the riders with strange shapes appeared and attacked them. One grabbed Levi, while another tried to take down Dresa. However, she quickly dodged and eliminated it. At the same time, Levi also freed himself and defeated the enemy. At this time, Dresa realized that she had lost the sensor in the river, the device needed for them to find a way out of here. When checking the enemy's body, Levi discovered that he was a soldier of the U.S. 1st Parachute Division. Dresa also saw the remains of British and Soviet soldiers. They gradually understood that these creatures were once soldiers in the 1940s, the era when cavalry was still used in war. They continued to move forward, crossing the dangerous land, where human skeletons were absorbed by the trees and became part of the forest of death. The scene was both strange and creepy. After a long distance they encountered where the ground showed signs of cracking, perhaps due to an earthquake earlier. Just then they heard the sound of monsters, making them highly alert, fearing something terrible was about to happen. They quickly ran into an old church. Inside they could still see the bones of the people who once lived here. Levi discovered that these people had committed suicide, causing both to question what was worse than death. Suddenly spider-like creatures appeared and attacked them. Both were once again forced to fight. However, that was still not the worst, because more and more humanoid creatures entered the area and tried to kill them. Luckily Levi and Dresa were both excellent shooters, so they quickly escaped from the old church. Both realized that they were about to be surrounded and immediately ran towards the wall of the abyss. When they arrived, they found an entrance to the shelter with no other choice but to step inside. They discovered that this place seemed to have been attacked with a strange kind of tree root. These roots covered almost the entire space. Levi and Dresa carefully checked the area and found a laboratory. This place still had the remains of the people who created it. Levi found a body clutching a box with the words written on it. "May God forgive us." Dresa activated the backup power of the laboratory, restarting the recording system. In the recording, a scientist said that the year was 1946. She said that while other leaders were building atomic bombs, her team was developing a bioweapon missile with equivalent destructive power. However, an earthquake severely destroyed this facility. From creators, they were now forced to become prisoners. The scientist in the recording had a seizure. She said that they would do everything to prevent this toxin from leaving the abyss. She explained that the biochemical substance had mixed into the DNA of all living things in the area. It caused humans to combine with plants and animals, leading to terrible mutations. At this time, Dresa found a glass cabinet with some bottles of red liquid still intact, one of which was labeled the final sample. The scientist continued to explain that some people had a longer incubation period, but when infected they only had 5 days before their bodies completely transformed. During that time they would gradually see signs of mutation. She affirmed that this area was chosen for these experiments because it was isolated and no one knew about it. Their purpose was to ensure the survival of humanity. After watching the video, Levi and Dresa entered the next room, where they discovered something unusual. There was a modern computer from the early 2000s, proving that this place had been visited and continued to be studied. Dresa questioned why not use a nuclear attack to destroy everything here. That could end it all. When Levi turned on the computer, he discovered the name of the company behind this. It was a non-military corporation specializing in genetic research. With this discovery they realized that this place still existed because it was still being studied. This was actually a remote control base for unmanned aerial vehicles. They collected samples from hybrid creatures to serve research with the goal of creating super soldiers. Now they understood that they had been deceived all along. They were only protecting this inhuman secret. Levi found a set of documents titled Stray Dog, the plan to develop a nuclear bomb installed at a strategic point in the abyss. According to information, when activated the minimum safe area would be more than 4 kilometers from the center of the explosion. After discovering this they decided to leave the shelter. But right before leaving they heard the sound of creatures outside. They also realized that they had human-like thinking and thoughts. They bravely stepped out trying to find a safer path. However, Dresa suddenly fell into a trap. A monster knight rushed to drag her away. Dresa tried to escape but unfortunately hit her head on a rock and fainted. Levi could not see clearly in the thick fog. He continued to search for Dresa and finally discovered another facility. There he saw a ballistic missile that seemed to have stopped working. In a hiding place Dresa was hanging suspended, tied with ropes. Not long after her captor appeared. It was a humanoid creature with its entire body transformed into tree roots. Dresa woke up and quickly tried to untie herself, while using anything within reach to attack the enemy. Although the creature was very strong, she still fought bravely and caused fatal blows. However, it did not want to lose its prey. Dresa continued to resist fiercely until Levi arrived and finished it off. When approaching, Levi realized that the one who had just been defeated was the first guard. He told Dresa that they were in a chemical weapons laboratory, where the earthquake had damaged one of the missiles, causing pollutants to spread everywhere. It created the thick fog in the abyss. At this time, they saw a huge mass of material made from countless organic tree roots connected together. These roots were filled with human bodies. They were partially digested and became a permanent part of this massive creature population. The two slipped through the terrifying vines, still unable to believe what they were witnessing. Suddenly Dresa touched a root. It immediately became aggressive and began to chase them, with no other choice. Dresa pulled the grenade pin and threw it straight at the creature. After the explosion they heard screams like people being burned alive. Escaping the area, they discovered a warehouse with many military vehicles. Levi and Dresa decided to repair a car, then headed to the location where Levi had fallen. Their plan was to use the rope as an anchor to climb up the east tower. One person tied the rope to the electric winch of the car, while the other person bought time by shooting down the monsters approaching. When everything was ready, they began to climb the huge wall of the abyss. However, when they climbed about halfway, monsters also climbed up. Not long after, they were both attacked because they ran out of ammunition. Levi had to pull out the sword he took from Bradford's body to fight. Dresa also carried an axe to chop down the enemy. The battle in the air was extremely fierce. Levi almost got thrown off the rope, but when he saw them climbing up the rope, he immediately pierced the car's fuel tank and set it on fire. The fire quickly spread along the rope, burning the monsters. But the explosion also damaged the car, making them unable to continue climbing. With no other choice, Dresa used the axe to cut the rope, causing them to fall onto a rock near the top of the abyss. A few minutes later, they successfully returned to the tower and bandaged their wounds. They discussed the possibility of being infected, and agreed that if there were signs of mutation, they would do what was necessary to prevent this from spreading to the outside world. After that, when talking about the escape plan, Levi affirmed that each creature was a source of infection. If one escaped, the world would fall into disaster, so they needed to destroy this abyss. After that, Levi created a new line to return to his tower. Before leaving, he warned Dresa that signs of mutation would appear within 5 days. If nothing happened, they would be safe. If there were, they would be doomed. Even so, Dresa remained optimistic. She hoped that next week they would meet again. The next day, Levi launched an attack on the mission control center. Through radio contact, Weaver immediately questioned him about the real purpose of the mission. She also asked about the drone control system, suspecting that someone had activated it from the abyss. But Levi kept a cold face and denied any involvement. After a moment of silence, Weaver ordered him to eliminate the guard of the East Tower. Levi agreed to follow the order. But when the conversation ended, Weaver began to review the footage from the satellite. She discovered the image of Levi contacting Dresa, and both knew their secret. Then Weaver ordered the commander to prepare a strike team. The next morning, Levi and Dresa were both resetting traps on the defense lines. They paused to rest, each on one side of the abyss. Suddenly Dresa sent a message, "I love you too." That simple line made Levi unable to hide his happy smile. But the warm moment was interrupted by the sound of helicopter propellers. They saw from a distance a squadron of combat helicopters approaching. Immediately both accelerated into the forest. From the control center, Weaver was observing through the screen. Seeing that Levi and Dresa were not present at their positions, she immediately activated the order to deploy military drones. Immediately a series of giant unmanned aircraft soared from the abyss and spread out to hunt down the targets. Not long after, a drone spotted Levi. Heavy firepower immediately tore through the forest. A piece of tree trunk was torn apart by bullets and fell on Levi, causing him to fall down the slope. But he quickly got up and responded with fire, exploding it. Dresa's side was also being pursued. Levi looked at a milestone on the road. There were 3.8 kilometers left to the tower, so she was too far away. But Dresa was an excellent sniper. She shot down 2 drones with 2 shots, causing them to collide and explode in mid-air. Both continued to run and shoot down each chasing drone. Reaching a higher point, they stopped temporarily, then aimed their guns at the tower. When aiming, Dresa clearly saw Weaver in the sights. At this time, her eyes were attracted by the wall behind, where the generations of previous guards had engraved their last words. There was a line that caught her attention. "There are 3 things that cannot be hidden forever: the sun, the moon, and the truth." Meanwhile, Levi had aimed at the signal transmission antenna and pulled the trigger. A huge explosion tore the device apart. Dresa did the same on the other side. The explosion triggered a series of chain reactions. The electric sparks ran along the cable that Levi had previously installed in the east. A similar cable was also placed in the west. Weaver immediately realized that this was a trap. Levi and Dresa had disabled the camouflage system of the abyss. This caused the area to be completely exposed to military satellites. And then the automatic programming system activated the self-destruct mode. The countdown time was 2 minutes. Below the abyss, the nuclear bomb had been installed from before preparing to explode. From the helicopter, Weaver shouted at her team to ignore the altitude and fly far away from the explosion. But it was too late when the abyss exploded. The huge fireball swallowed everything within a radius of dozens of kilometers. The shockwave tore through the sky. The shockwave swept away the entire forest. The helicopter also exploded in mid-air. Weaver and her team were burned to ashes in the sea of fire. Levi could not run fast, so he jumped into a waterfall. Dresa stood from afar and could only silently witness everything. Many days later, Dresa was hiding in a cave. She began to carve marks on the rock, marking each passing day. The goal was to wait for her lover to appear. She knew that only after the 5th day would she be sure she was safe. Dresa looked at an envelope that Levi had given her earlier. "If I don't come back, open it at sunset on the 5th day." When the 5th day came, Dresa left the cave. Not long after, somewhere in France, on a hill near an ancient memorial, Dresa sat quietly as if waiting for something. When sunset fell, she slowly opened the envelope. Dresa read the words inside with teary eyes. She was silent for a long time, then gently stood up and left. Many months later, Dresa was working as a waitress at a seaside restaurant. When she was busy cleaning the table, she suddenly stopped. Not far away, there was a person sitting alone. He looked at her and smiled. She was also stunned, then quickly ran over. Dresa immediately rushed into Levi's arms, who had returned. The two hugged tightly and then shared a passionate kiss. The movie ended here. If you find it good, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the latest videos.